To this Uspire discovery session on building price resilience. Uh, Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. In the next 50 minutes, we have three objectives. The first objective is to provoke your thinking with some input from myself, my colleagues from Uspire, and indeed also one of our customers. The second objective is to energize you to take some of that thinking back into your own organizations and share it with your colleagues. And the third element is to really get you to think about how Uspire can help you to change and transform your approach to pricing in your organization and for your customers. So with that in mind, before I introduce our framework, our price resilience jigsaw to you, I just wanted to share sort of the rough setup for the day. We're going to be using chat. We're going to be using chat. If you could put your microphones on mute, that's great. At the end, we hope to have time for a few questions. And we're going to provoke you to think about things and then drop some of your thoughts into chat. And I want to start by asking you all a question, and I'd love you to drop your answers into chat for us. And the question is this: why is price resilience important to your organization? I can hear somebody. If you could put your microphone on mute, that would be great. So if you could just drop some of your thoughts into why price resilience is important to your organization, that would be fantastic. Chris, can you take control and mute people if they're... Yeah, there's a few people I can hear, which would be great. So we can drop some of those thoughts in, and I think we'll factor those into our discussions as we go through the day. Revenue is our oxygen. Yeah. Safeguards our profitability. Perfect. Good. So we're going to talk about some of those elements as we introduce our jigsaw. And here it is. Mark, I think you're proud of me. We like a good acronym in Uspire. Here is our price resilience jigsaw. It has 6 pieces, and with the help of one of my colleagues at Uspire and one of our customers, we're going to bring those 6 pieces to life for you. And we're going to start with the first piece, which is M. And M stands for multiple dimensions, multi-dimensions. So this is step 1 in our jigsaw. And this is about you and your organization thinking about what's your objective, what's your mission, what are you trying to achieve, what's driving your business. It could be growth, it could be about maximizing profit or revenue, it could be about survival. And I thought it would be great to hear from Colin. Now, Colin is a director of our business. Hopefully some of you will have met him, but he doesn't just work in Uspire. He works in a number of other businesses in different sectors. So he's working in retail, he's working in food service, he's working in leisure. So I thought it'd be terrific to hear just a few minutes from Colin. And what's important when you are considering, as a director of those businesses, the dimensions that will influence your approach to pricing. So Colin, I'm going to hand the floor over to you for a few minutes just to share some of your thoughts.
Thank you, JB. Good afternoon, everybody. One of the fascinating things is when we're getting into starting up even a new business or an existing business is we have the topic, which is pricing architecture, which sounds very boring, but it is actually how we actually set, present, and communicate the prices for the products and services that we've got within our organizations. I find it a tremendous amount of fun because what it does, it really stimulates a leader's mind because you have to be thinking about the flexibility of actually getting out there to market with the right price. It always reminds me that when McKinsey said that pricing is the single most lever, the most important lever for profitability, it's definitely not cost cutting. So whenever you've got a business in a crisis, the other important thing is to sit and discuss how pricing architecture can actually help you out of a very difficult situation. Your pricing strategy, quite simply, can determine whether you thrive, merely survive, or eventually, ultimately, can go bust. So my experience of dealing with all these businesses that we always begin with the simple concept that pricing strategy is not about finding the perfect price, it's about finding the perfect customer at the right price. So to do this, we build a sustainable business model that helps us to look at how our price is actually going to impact on everything we do throughout the business. And we think about lots of pricing models. A quick question for you, put the answer into chat. How many pricing models do you think actually exist that are known to exist? Different pricing models for different industries and different sectors. Please put the answer into chat. Thanks, everybody. The correct answer is actually over 30, although they are broken down into 7 different categories, and I can talk to you briefly about that in a moment. But one of the things that we've also learned is that good pricing is a combination of actually data-driven decisions as well as human psychology. So whenever we're thinking about a new business startup, an existing business, we look at how people's behavior continues to change in the marketplace. Because the moment you make a mistake in pricing, you're not just eating into your reputation, you're obviously also eating into your profits, which can have a dramatic impact on everything we do. So pricing, I would suggest to you, whenever you're looking at your business, is not a one-time decision. It's a journey to capture value, and it's a dynamic feature that you must be looking at continuously. There are numerous pricing models that I've talked about. I'll probably give you a flavor of the 7 sort of categories they broadly come into. And we look at all of these things, which is cost-based pricing models, value-based pricing models, market-based, psychological pricing, subscription and usage pricing, sector-driven, and there's lots of new, very fascinating sort of emerging niche-based pricing models. So if I touch on a few which tend to get used in business I'm involved in, firstly, we've got the freemium model. So one of my investments, which is a company called Viper, set out with a technology platform. Nobody really knew what we did. So the first thing we had to do was to try and stimulate usage. So we went out with an opportunity for everybody to use our platform free, just to try it, to see what benefits it would bring to their business. What that then did was stimulate sufficient sort of interest in the product, because people started to see the benefit, that we were able then to combine new features and create opportunities for people to unlock things like pricing steers, which we charge an extra premium for. So as they go through the journey of getting the product free, you're actually unlocking different sort of pricing products that people, if they're getting very familiar and liking the product, tend to buy into. The other one, because I'm involved in the fashion industry, which is fascinating, is the whole concept of high-low, which is all about creating desire. And one of the businesses I always admire is Zara, that are doing an incredible job. And you probably don't know that most of Zara's profits are made about 26 weeks of the year. So what happens is new styles come to the market, they milk desire, create FOMO. So everybody goes in because they want the new look. And towards the end, they clear the remainder at cost. But all the profit is made in those first few weeks of actually launching something new into the season at its highest possible price. The other one we've used effectively in health and beauty is penetration pricing, where we started at a very low price because we needed to gain entry into the product, and gradually built loyalty. That loyalty enables us to upgrade the look, the packaging, the feel, and we gradually increase the price because we built up sufficient loyalty to the product. The other one, which I always like to look at, is the value of premium brands. So you never see a Louis Vuitton bag that's actually on a discount. And there is a very good reason why the big brands avoid ever putting their brand actually on a platform like Amazon. The danger if you are on Amazon is you often get filtered by price. They encourage copies of your product for the buy box, and it can destroy your brand value. Somebody like Tesco would do exactly the same, but as Amazon has an advantage because they have unlimited shelf space. Often on Amazon, your product starts to look a bit like, you can't see that because my filter's on, but a bit like a lineup, a police lineup where everybody actually looks the same. So it's not the best place for you to be. I guess I would give you a few final words, which is that price, it's from Warren Buffett, who obviously we all know is one of the most incredible sort of investment gurus to ever be on the planet. But essentially, price is what you pay and value is what you get. And I know Mark's very excited about showing you what the value equation looks like. And he also says that pricing power is the most important decision in evaluating a business prior to making an investment. And luckily for him, he has a very unique algorithm at his fingertips that he puts various different parameters into to actually come up with whether that particular investment has what he describes as robust pricing power. The other final thing I'll show you, I've taken a little bit of a sort of learning from Mark. Hopefully you can see it, which is this. Ooh, is it there? No, we're not going to get it, are we, with the filters on?
Right in front of your body, Colin.
Is it? How's that?
That's better. That's it. And
Right,
then lift
how's
it up
that?
slightly. No,
How's
keep
that?
it in front of your
Forward,
chest.
forward.
Yeah,
How's
stand
Okay.
up, Colin, and then put it in front
Stand
of
up.
you.
Right,
Stand up, put it
okay.
in front of your chest.
Sorry, everybody.
That's fine. Stick it in front of your chest. That should work.
And closer to your chest.
There
That's
you
it.
go. Judgment price.
Right. Well, what it is, it's called the judgment price sandwich. So essentially, whenever we make a decision, you're passing judgment before you buy, and you're passing judgment out the other side. And sort of price is always in the middle. And that's one of the other things we tend to discuss whenever we're looking at starting up a new business proposition or exploring sort of the factors that are going into a new financial year.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you so much, Colin, for sharing that. And I think there's some real nuggets in there. So step one is all about understanding what you're trying to achieve. Is it market penetration? Is it growth? So some lovely examples there for different businesses. And step two in our jigsaw is all about outlining. So O is for outlining. And it might be that you're outlining the capacity you need to meet the sales forecast. It might be you're outlining which channels you're planning to market your products, your goods and services through or to. But actually, I asked Mark to contribute to this section, thinking about value. And the question I have for Mark was, when we're working with our customers, how do we help them outline their unique value and benefits to their customers? So, Mark, over to you to share some of your thoughts.
Thank you. This is all about your unique value. And the key is to establish and land that value before you negotiate. Because if you haven't established your value, it's just a price war and it's transactional. So establishing your value right from the start. So the key in that context is to sell well first. Be absolutely clear about what you do and why it specifically meets the needs and the pain point solutions for your customer. That's it. Sell well first, establish the value. Now, there are three main elements of a value proposition. And I'm actually thrilled that on this call, I've got one of my key customers at Uspire, and it's Enrico Caglieri, Signore Enrico Caglieri from Italy, and he manages a premium product. And the product that Enrico manages in a very competitive marketplace is often 30 to 40% higher by price point than the competition. So of course, it's simply critical that the value proposition is sold well first before we come into that lovely give and take element of a negotiation. So what are the main elements of a great value proposition? There are three main key aspects. It is specific to your customer's main need and or pain point. It is uniquely different from anybody else. And it actually drives clear, consistent customer benefits against the needs that you've established. Now, the value proposition equation then is putting together a short dynamic sentence that ticks all three of those boxes. What is the pain point this addresses? What are the main benefits it gives you? And why is our value proposition distinctly unique? Now, I'm going to give you a specific example. I was working with a client last week. We were in Prague, in Czech Republic, and we were talking about value proposition. And I said, you can include yourself, if you bring a certain expertise as part of the whole brand proposition. And the lady I was speaking to said, well, I'm working in a hospital and I have a clinical background, and I've worked in high-risk surgery for 20 years. And I have probably now done at least 4,000 high-risk surgeries, and I probably have experienced every single patient complication on the operating table. And I said, stop. That's central to your value proposition. That level of expertise as a partner, you add that to the world-class product you have, and there is a unique benefit that your competition simply doesn't have that level of experience. So that's just a simple example where I'm showing you we're uniquely different. We can help and support patients in this case, in your operations, and I can make your life easier and get better patient outcomes. Pain point, benefits, unique. So if I was to summarize this session about unique value, it is most definitely sell well first, but be very specific about your unique value proposition.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for that. And great examples, by the way. We are going to explore a little bit more about goods versus services and how you differentiate the two. And the next segment of our jigsaw is the D. And this is all about determining the costs of delivering your solution, your offering. And I thought it'd be great to get a different perspective from someone who is one of our customers, who manages those costs back into the supply chain. So your prices are often seen as the costs to the organization that you're servicing. So the company that Ina works for is Munters. They have been a customer of ours for a number of years now. Munters make climate control products for everything from data centers right through to commercial ice rinks. So Ina is head of quality sourcing, or she's director actually of quality sourcing and supply chain. Now she couldn't be with us today, but I asked her to share with us in a short video how Munters go about determining the selection criteria for goods versus services. So Chris, if you'd like to play Ina's short video for us, thank you.
Product or service. And we're looking for a new supplier, regardless whether we're doing a large complex RFP or it's a simple new requirement. We always start off actually with the statement of requirements or the technical specification, and that's agreed with the stakeholders. And the next thing we do is then we agree the selection criteria. So how are we going to evaluate the proposals we get back? We agree then if we weight the criteria, because some are more important than others, and then we also agree on the scoring, how we're going to score them. So the selection criteria varies depending on if it's a product or a service. If it's a product, typical selection criteria would be commercial terms. So not only price, we look at the payment terms. So working capital is very important for us. So it's not only the price, it's actually the payment terms the supplier can offer us. Also, can they offer a volume rebate? This is also very important. Also, if the price is fixed, or what the price review mechanism is, that's also important. And also if they will offer us open book costing. So it's not only the price when we think about the commercial terms. Another important selection criteria is obviously quality. If it's a product, we need ISO certification. If it's, we may need REACH or ROS. Then service level is really, really important. And on service level, what we mean is key account management, day-to-day contact, escalation process, proactivity. And we actually have moved away from suppliers because of the service level. So poor communication, not being proactive. So service level is actually really, really important. How much attention we would get, how the account is managed, that we have a contact person, that the supplier is responsive and replies urgently to any issues that we have. Another one then, if we're talking about products, another selection criteria would be capacity in the factory, lead times, how quick the lead time is. That's really, really important at the moment for us. Also, if they would offer to hold consignment stock, that is really important because that then helps on our working capital. If the supplier would offer to hold consignment stock or a buffer stock, because that would then help with the lead time. So all of that is very important. And then there are two other ones that are important. So financial information. So we will always ask for 3 years of revenue and the last 3 years of the profit. And we want to make sure that any supplier we work with is financially stable and actually will be in business in 2 or 3 years' time. So we want the company to be making a decent margin, not too much, because then we know there's room for negotiation, and not too little, because we don't want them to go bankrupt, but they need to be financially stable. And the last selection criteria that's obviously become much more important in the last recent years is sustainability. 10 years ago, this probably was not even considered. And then it was only, will the supplier agree to our code of conduct? But now we have much more sophisticated systems for measuring supplier sustainability. And we ask for quite a lot of information on that. So they would be, if we're looking at a product, it would be commercial, quality, service level, capacity, lead times, financial stability, and then sustainability. If we're talking about services, it's quite different. It depends on what the service is. I've done RFPs for auditors, and in that case, it was very important on the people and the relationship, and we had to have confidence in those people's actual skills, their expertise, their experience, their global experience. We asked for CVs. Same in marketing, you would ask for the CVs of the lead people that you would be dealing with, because it's the people that are delivering that service, and you need to have confidence in the people and the team. And also you need to make sure they understand your culture. So we would have a selection criteria. Do they understand us? And do they understand our culture, our ways of working? And will we all be able to work together?
Fantastic. My thanks to Ina for sharing some of her thoughts there and giving us that different lens. What I loved about that was the connection to what you said, Mark, which is actually when you're delivering the service, the people, their credibility, and the relationships that you have with them are a unique point of difference, and they're important that they're sold in as part of the pricing. Now, we've covered the first 3 segments of our jigsaw puzzle. I thought it would be a great point just to stop and take any questions. So either you can drop a question in chat and we'll field it, or if you want to, you can put your hand up and we'll turn your mic on and you can ask a question. So any questions from anyone at this stage in the model? I've got one here from Eddie. Is the effect of the procurement matrix on their selection criteria? Good question, Eddie. I think maybe you turn your microphone off and tell people what you mean by the procurement matrix. That would be great.
Is my microphone on?
It is. We can hear you.
Yeah, so my background's in supply chain and data, but what Ina showed you there was the selection criteria of the person that's going to buy your goods or service, and she's just giving you an insight into what goes beyond pricing, which is, as Mark said, it's not about the pricing, it's about all the other stuff that goes with it. And I suppose what Ina's given the sellers is a unique view into what their criteria is for anybody that's done RFPs and Qs. And I think just looking at it as a thing called the procurement matrix, and basically what the lady did there was just highlight the criteria that they use for goods and services.
Yeah. So thanks, Eddie. And I think to answer your question, yes, a lot of organizations are much more sophisticated now in terms of how they assess a product or a service beyond price. So what's behind your price? So the pricing, whatever pricing model you decide, you need to ensure that your unique value and all the different elements of your unique value are well sold and well understood. So any other questions? Let me just say, I'll maybe take one more question maybe for Mark. Francis, which is the most important thing to keep in mind to be successful in exploring pain points for your customers? Mark, do you want to just quickly take that one?
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I learned this from a friend of mine just last week when she said great listening skills are when you listen so hard it might change your own opinion. And I think it's so easy as a salesperson to have a clear assumption about what your customer thinks, wants, and is their pain point. So it's absolutely vital that you stay curious and keep asking to fully understand. And then you've got a flavor for pain point rather than just a superficial first view.
Super. Thanks so much, Mark. So let's move on to the 4th piece of the puzzle. This is the eye of the jigsaw, and this is all about identifying some of the things that you will need to plan for when you're selling in your product at whatever price, using whatever price model you've come up with. So it could be about understanding your competition, what they're doing. It could be about understanding what's happening in the markets. It could equally be about taking existing customer feedback on your current product or offering and demonstrating that you've listened and you've adapted your product. But I thought it would be great to ask Chester. Now, Chester's again not here, but he sent me a short video. Chester's working with a lot of our customers in the area of objection handling. Customers like Royal Canin and Cooper Vision, some of them actually even maybe on our call today. The reason he's not here is because he's actually working with some customers on this very subject. So the question I asked him was, how does he help with the work that he does our customers identify the likely objections that they will hear when they try to push through their pricing increase or their pricing model? Okay, so here's some thoughts and some tips from Chester, and actually links to some of the points that you've just made, Mark, as well. So Chris, if you could play Chester's video.
Transaction, it's a bit more like trading, and you've got to
Chris, can you do it from the beginning?
position your own brain into a sense of
From the beginning, yeah.
So it depends on who you're dealing with and equally how well you know them. If it's a one-off transaction, it's a bit more like trading, and you've got to position your own brain into a sense of this is a one-off transaction, and therefore it's about value maximization for me and the other party, because otherwise they're not going to buy into your value proposition. However, most of the key account management relationships that I witness going on, it's about an ongoing conversation. It's an ongoing trading relationship. There's a buy and sell over a period of time, and that requires a much more mature level of conversation to unlock and explore the element of value for both sides. So this is what I need, and this is what I believe you to need. Help me understand which bits of this aren't working for you so that we can find a way forward. So probing questions using questioning skills, as you're only too aware, to drill down below the stated intention to get down to the need, or even deeper into that what's the real interest that sits below the need, because that's what people really value. Top tip number one comes back to the psychological element and understanding how your body responds, taking your time and breathing. Breathing puts oxygen in your brain. It also brings your pulse rate down. It also just buys you a bit of thinking time. So when you are in the heat of a discussion and the objection comes out, playing back the objection by acknowledging it, showing that you've heard, it dials up a great level of empathy, and that releases hormones in the listener's brain, just in terms of, I like this person, they're mature. The body language that you have, if you are defensive or nervous in your body language, the other person starts to pick that up. So projecting confidence, speaking at a good, clear pace, knowing that you've planned and practiced some of this will give you that confidence. And therefore, the other human being receiving the messages that you're sending back feels more at ease that what you're saying is both valid and holds value to progress it. So that's a second tip. Just understand that you're in a two-way conversation. The other human being receiving your message is there. And then asking probing questions. Quite frequently what we see is just a misinterpretation of the objection. So are they objecting to price, or is it that they just don't understand your value proposition clearly enough? It might be that by playing back your interpretation of the objection, they go, oh, no, that's not quite what I meant, actually. What I meant was, and they'll reposition what they said if it's not a direct positioning around your price is too expensive.
Right.
And then the final tip, I guess, Jonathan, is then what you want to do is to talk about your value proposition, and therefore the question that you ask is a pivot. So you want to pivot from the objection to talking about your value proposition, But by using your listening skills, you're going to pick what element of your value proposition matches the original objection. And therefore, the pivot question in the middle is linking the objection back into your value proposition. So the question you ask is actually critical, and that's the bit that you need to spend time planning. What questions will pivot into which parts of my value proposition? We have mindset, skill set, and tool sets that are available to help position why we need to do something different, how we need to do something different, and then the purposeful practice around both face-to-face and online workshops. We've seen this work incredibly well online, where we've been working internationally and globally. We've been able to bring multiple markets in. They all have similar cost price, inflation linked or labor driven challenges. Everyone's in the same boat, so it doesn't even need to be the same team in a market. You'll find that actually by sharing it, you'll hear some great examples. It builds confidence, and confidence at the end of the day is quite frequently the one thing that lands your price increase more than anything else.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chester. Thanks for that comment as well, Mark. The Oscars, I think he does get Best Supporting Actor on this occasion. But no, I think what you heard there from Chester was the importance of listening and some of the work that he's already doing with customers. So we've got a whole series of workshops that are specifically designed to help organizations to deliver, execute their approach to pricing. And at this time of year, when we're thinking about 2025, Q1 is when most price models change or increases come through, or people trying to manage those cost increase or mitigate them. So now's a good time to be thinking about your approach. So we've done the step one, which is about being clear what our dimensions are, whether we're going for growth. We've thought about our unique value, and Mark's talked about how we can sell that in. We've had a perspective from a customer in terms of how they evaluate goods versus services, and in particular, how the importance of the individual relationships and not forgetting to sell those relationships in as part of your unique value proposition. We then looked at how you plan for objections, because if you don't plan for objections, when they come, it will undermine that confidence that Chester talked about. So I love the idea that you can pivot from an objection to a piece of your value proposition that addresses directly that objection and potentially a pain point that sits behind it. So the next part, the fifth part in our jigsaw, is the F, and this is about finding the right approach for you. So you've taken all those things into consideration, you've started to evaluate those, and you're thinking about what's best for your business. And I thought it would be great to get some input from Amanda. Again, Amanda's not here with us in person, she's working with a customer, but does a lot of work in the space where customers are both have a branded offering and they produce some private label or own label products for another customer. So I thought it'd be great. The question I asked her was, when she's working with customers, particularly around brand versus own label, what are some of the pricing methods that they consider? So here's a few minutes from Amanda.
You know, I think it's an interesting dynamic between brand and own label products. I mean, in the UK market, there are some of the retailers who don't do only own label have pretty premium ones. So it is all about, as it says behind me, that perceived value. Certainly when I was at McVitie's Biscuits, for example, we did a number of own label products, which were, so you've got your brand here, and then you've got a really low price product, and then like a tier of own label that was kind of in the middle. It's a bit like Goldilocks theory. So a really low price, really high price, and then something in the middle. And that we sold more of the one in the middle than the lower priced one, actually. When you're thinking about how a brand needs to price itself versus own label, though, again, it depends on the premium nature of the product. So if you've got a product, for example, an organic product or a product that's got a point of difference, sometimes somebody like Marks and Spencer's might have developed a product that's actually got a point of difference in the marketplace, often do, and that own label product can sometimes be more expensive than a branded product. I also often get asked about, or used to often get asked about, whether to actually supply own label by branded businesses. And that's a really interesting question, because a branded business who has, not great capacity and who could do lots of own label if they wanted to, why would you do own label? It's an interesting question. It's a couple of reasons. One is that it allows you to control or to have some more influence over the product, that premiumization, that banding. The other reason is, if you do have capacity, then it does absolutely fill the factory and therefore gives you that return on your asset.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Amanda. Thanks for that. And I think, interestingly, when I listened to Amanda, and I've worked with Amanda a lot with organizations that are wrestling with, do I promote my brand first or do I fill my factory? And the truth is there's a balance. And we heard that there in some of the conversations she's been having. There are other things that will influence how you find the best approach. And then maybe for certain customers, for certain segments, that even a bespoke configuration, something that feels quite unique, will add value. I think you heard Ina talking about the dreaded open book, which I think a lot of organizations fear, but in long-term 5-10-year contracts, often the bedrock of that relationship is some level of transparency, which allows both organizations to share the risk. Okay, so we're moving on to the final piece of our puzzle. And this is where you've collected all of this information in the first 5 steps, and then as an organization you've sat down, you've looked at your customers, you've looked at your objectives, and you've said, right, okay, which are the pricing models that are most appropriate for the goods and services that we are selling, and it may be different for different elements of your portfolio. So there may be some elements that are seasonal. So right now we're in the middle of some real seasonal promotion activity in the lead up to Christmas. Years ago when I worked with Diageo, 80% of the volume that we sold for Bailey's Irish Cream was sold between October and December. So you can find certain businesses are affected hugely by seasonality, others less so. So I thought it'd be great to hear from our managing partner, Pippa, and Pippa's going to just share some examples of some of the different pricing models that you may consider as an organization once you've done the first 5 steps in our jigsaw. So over to you, Pippa.
Hi, hello, good afternoon, everybody. Hi there. I'm going to give you some models, but actually I'm going to challenge you all now to get a pen and paper and write down 5 words. And I want you to take these 5 words away with you and challenge your pricing questioning and thought process as you go through the rest of the day. When I first looked at the pricing approach, I thought, God, it's probably 2 or 3. And then once you start to think about where your pricing is, why you're doing it, how you're going to interpret it, when you're going to do it, it becomes a much more wider opportunity to price equivalently where you want to be and where you want to play. So the 5 words: what, where, when, who, and how. What is your pricing approach when it comes to your packaging? What is the size or the weight that you can adjust and manufacture according to the right price? What are the materials? How many SKUs do you need? What is your pack price architecture to make you differentiated within the market? What is it you can do within your product that will dictate some of the pricing enablers? Things to think about when you get to where. Where is your segmentation in the market, and where is it you really need to play in? You understand your value, you've determined who and where you're going. What is that? Where is that? Is that shops? Is that online? Is that local versus national? Is it experiential, tangible? Is it mass market versus niche? Where is the right pricing model for you within the area that you want to play? When is it? JB's just mentioned about we're in seasonal. What does that seasonal pricing mean for you? Christmas, we've got loads going on at the moment. I'm certainly one of those Bailey's users. But is there a better offer? Is there a better opportunity to price, and is it the right time in the seasonals? Are there events throughout the year that fit even better with a pricing opportunity for your products or service? What happens every day versus special occasions or promotional activity? Is it sustainable? The psychological part where Chester mentioned earlier, in terms of, is that promotional, is that seasonal event, is that Cyber Monday, Black Friday, the right time for you to onboard your consumers, to get the right value proposition over? Is it doing more good than harm? Who are your competitors and what are they doing? Who is your pricing model really going to focus on? Could you do some partnership pricing? Disney, fantastic. Lego, partnership with products to enable a pricing strategy that works for the consumer fantastically. Joint offers, collaborations. We've all bought a meal kit, I'm sure, at some stage, been bombarded by a HelloFresh or of various tacos, fajitas. How do you join up to offer even better value within your pricing architecture to help you give great value? And finally, the how. How are you going to implement your pricing? And the biggest question here I would challenge you to think about is how sustainable is it? How can I make sure I maintain this level, whether it's flat or up and down with promotional strategies? Is it sustainable? How am I going to do this? Am I going to be a leader in my market? Am I going to follow? Am I a high-low pricer? How do I onboard value if I'm not necessarily consistent with my pricing? Am I premium? How do I get from standard to premium? How do I move from freemium to standard to premium if that's the right way for you? Am I going to index my pricing in the market? How much clarity do I need to demonstrate to make sure I've got a sustainable revenue? So whilst you might think your pricing approach is really, I've done all the research beforehand, I know where I'm at, there is still more areas to challenge yourself to see if your pricing architecture and the model in the market in various areas and how you're going to do it are really important. So I challenge you to look at your business. What is your pricing? Where are you doing it? When is the right time? Who are you doing it against and for? And how do you make it sustainable?
Super. Thank you so much, Pippa. Thanks very much for sharing your thoughts. So there we have it, everyone. Our Uspire price resilience jigsaw. Hopefully we've brought it to life for you. Our goal, if you remember at the beginning, was to help you, provoke you to think about pricing differently and modify your approach. Maybe you can use elements of this and we'd be delighted if we can to help you. I'm going to throw the floor open for questions. We've got a few minutes before we wrap up. So I'm going to give anyone the opportunity to either post a question in chat and we'll read it, or take your microphone off mute and ask any of us a question.
JB, I've got a question, and
Yeah.
and it's inspired by when you put a price increase in, you're in most cases getting a pushback from your customer.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? So you've pitched a price you think is reasonable, and you get an immediate, there's no chance, this is an absolute no way. How do you manage that? How do you stay resilient when there's a real pressure from the competition to not increase your price?
Well, let me say, first of all, let's assume you've sold well first. It's likely to be an objection that you will have planned for. I mean, there won't be many people that go in to try and sell something and don't expect the first response to be, that's just not going to happen. We're not interested in price increases. And often when you have that, it's valuable to think about the difference between a position, a need, and an interest. Because me saying to you, we're not accepting price increases, is a bit like King Canute sitting, trying to hold the tide back. At the moment, we know there are lots of credible reasons why price increases are required. So actually, what's more important is, what's that need? What's that pain point that you're trying to connect with? So my view is a little bit like Chester shared. I would pivot. I would acknowledge, say, look, this is a challenging time for everyone because of inflation in labour costs and materials costs. However, what we have done is we've looked at what you need, and we've come up with what we think is the optimal product or service. And the other thing, which I think always goes down well with the buying community, is to demonstrate that you have already taken some of the pain yourself. For example, we have created a new way of doing things which has taken out all the waste and inefficiency. We've helped you reduce your waste or inefficiency by this. And because we've done that, this product now has potentially even more value to you than the competition. So I think, to answer your question, it's an objection you should plan for. What's the pivot? What's the part of your value proposition? Which pain point does it connect with? And being good at and confident in doing that, because if you ignore it, then it's an irritator. We don't want to irritate our customers. We want to embrace their challenges and show that the solution we have is the right solution for them. So hopefully that answers that question. I think it's a great one. You should also be clear about the difference between a product and a service. And Ina gave us some hints as to how important the environmental considerations are, for example, at the moment. 10 years ago, it was lip service. Now there are real models. She talked about Reach and Ross, which are environmental standards that they're employing to ensure that their suppliers can meet those standards. Otherwise, they can't even entertain using them. Any other questions? If not, let me just move on to a little bit of overt marketing on our part. We would love to help you. If this is something that your business is looking at, thinking about price resilience, we have the tools, the techniques, we have workshops, we have got advocates already who would be happy to share with you what we've done to help them deliver their pricing approach for 2025. So please do consider us and get in contact with any of us after this discovery session. So that's the first thing to say. And the second thing is a little bit of marketing for our next event, which will be on Thursday, the 9th of January. And it will be facilitated by Selin Morin, I think, who's going to cover the subject of well-being for 2025. So quite a good time, Q1, entering a new year, a new spirit, a new adventure for many of your organizations. So please, if you are able to join us for that, then we'd love to see you there. Anything else, Chris or Pippa, that I've forgotten?
No, we'll be sending out invites to that 9th of January Discover in due course. So everybody who's already registered for the series will send you the information about that event, and anybody who hasn't, will send out the invite as well to everybody. So. Yeah,
and there's a recording of this video for those of you who want. And I think I saw a question about some of the slides. We'll produce a sort of small pack of a deck of some of the materials that we've been using today, and hopefully let's keep the conversation going with you and your organizations about how we can support you in 2025. And that's it. And so I just want to say thank you to all my colleagues, those that were actually on the call, Colin, Pippa, Mark, thank you so much. And to Ina and Amanda and Chester, who took the time out and are out delivering with customers, thank you to them as well. I think hopefully you got to see lots of different perspectives. We've provoked you, we've energized you, and let's help you to transform your approach to pricing. Thanks for joining us.